Hello, good evening and welcome everyone. So thanks for joining this evening's session looking at apprenticeship pathways into digital careers. We've got some great speakers lined up for you this evening. So you're going to hear from Pete Kelly and Ethan Craig from Forth Valley College, and we've also got Sarah Dodds and Lynn Somerville from Heriot-Watt. I should have introduced myself. My name's David Aaron. I'm from Heriot-Watt also. Now, before I hand over to Sarah, who's first up, I'd just like to cover off some quick housekeeping, please. So the session's being recorded tonight. Also, if you could turn off your cameras and mute your mics during the presentations, that would be fantastic. Now, at the end of the presentations, we should have time for a Q&A, so you can unmute yourself and put your videos back on at that point if you like. And in the Q&A, you can either pop a question into the chat function, or if you're brave enough, you can even ask a question out loud. So that's all I wanted to say just now. And first up, Sarah, we have you. So I'm going to hand over to you. And Sarah, just give me a little nudge and I'll move the slides on for you, okay?
Great. Thank you, David. Welcome, everyone. This is very exciting to be part of the Scottish Apprenticeship Week with Heriot-Watt University and Forth Valley College. I'm Sarah Dodd, and I work as a digital business strategist with Heriot-Watt. So I have a background in technology. I've been in the tech industry in Scotland for over 20 years and have seen it grow exponentially. So what I wanted to do today was to look at pathways that you can focus on to help develop a new career. Now, obviously, I'm focusing on roles that require digital skills, but it's really a fantastic time to do things differently and to get your feet into a booming industry through an apprenticeship and grow the skills and the expertise that can give you a fantastic platform in the changing world that we work in. So I'm going to take you through a few slides and give you an idea of what an apprenticeship in software development or hardware might mean for your future. So great. Could we have the next slide, please, David? So could I have the next slide? Thank you. So that seems fairly obvious. What is software? I'm sure most of you know what it is, but it's good to think about all that it's become and its importance in every sector of our economy. I've often heard it said that every company is a software company, and really to some extent that's true now. But primarily, software is an application that enables you or a machine to do something. You'll be familiar with ones like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, but also maybe the larger applications like Google or Amazon, and certainly all the banking, e-commerce, healthcare, social media applications that we use every day. So software enables us to communicate and share information, and that information might be text, images, videos, sound, through applications like, well, ones that might be familiar are WhatsApp, Snapchat, TikTok, things that are people using regularly over different hardware. So software programs are written in a coding language, and you may have heard of languages such as Python or Java or JavaScript. These are some of the main ones that are used in developing applications and software programs, but there are hundreds, and some are very specific and some are very task focused and others are very generic. Some are easy to learn, some are hard to learn, but once you learn one, you can often learn the second one much easier and the third one comes super easy. So it's not daunting to learn a new language to develop applications. You've got certain languages that are used to build a front end of an application, so that's what the user sees, and others are used for building a back end, and that's what tells the machine or the application what to do. And when you put all these together, they might also intersect with databases and APIs and different levels of security and layers, and you've got a full stack. So some software does one particular job. It might be like an encryption program that checks for validity, checks to make sure data is right or accurate. So it's really focused on one task. But others are interactive and they work with data that is stored on computers, on servers, in the cloud. They might use applications that push information or pull it from places, or even search mechanisms throughout the internet. So search engine does just that. Other software applications can read facial images. They can recognize voices, and they can analyze fingerprints. So they're hugely varied in what they can do. Can I have the next slide, David, please? So I put up these 3 images of what you can make with software. And I think sometimes people forget that all these things have to be made. And essentially, most of them are still made by hand by a software developer or an application developer. These are 3 images, but there's hundreds I could have drawn on. And if we go back to that premise that mostly a software developer is creating a program to complete an activity. So the first image is from NASA, and it shows a satellite picture of the Earth. Now, these images are beamed back and are layered onto software that will add detail from other databases or sensors or other images, and they then can be used to determine all sorts of things like weather patterns, or look for deforestation in parts of the world, or assess climate change over a period of time. We use them to look at things like the polar ice melt. So very complex applications drawing on a number of different tech to make that happen. The one in the middle is by the World Wildlife Fund, and that is an app that you can download onto your mobile phone that shares stories of different species of animals and how they interact and are impacted by changing things like climate. It gives you videos, it gives you visuals, it gives you news, facts, it gives you all sorts of information on different conservation efforts, and you can use the app to share information that you learn on it through your other channels, through your other social media. So it's a very interactive app. ASOS, you may well know that if you shop online, and it's grown to be one of the biggest clothing retailers in the UK. But it's never had a high street shop, so you never see ASOS down the high street. But the difference that this has made to people's lives is amazing, because it's enabled people who are nowhere near a city centre to try and buy clothing that they never had access to before. And also, it's usually a whole lot cheaper. So ASOS has employees that will do all sorts of different things within that. The whole business is run on software, but they employ creative people, technical people. They have people running the front end of this, which is really like a shop. They have people in the back end that are doing all the fulfillment and making sure you paid the right thing or you're getting the right product. They have supply chain, logistics, distribution. They have all the business functions, but it's basically a software application. So next slide, please. So again, here's the other side of the coin, hardware. The two go together, they're side by side. And originally we thought of hardware, well, in my day, in the old day, of giant mainframe computers that were used for storing information, and they took up huge warehouses and big rooms, and they were vast, complicated machines with no interface. They just whirled in a darkness, in a dark room. But with the invention of silicon tech and silicon chips, computing power was able to be reduced to very, very small scale. And that enabled the invention of smaller personal devices. So we have the personal computer as the first part of that. And now, of course, we've got laptops, tablets, phones, all sorts. But hardware is essentially a vehicle through which software operates. And we've been able to innovate with that combination to create some really fantastic uses for computing science, which is about how it all works. So if you think about it, you can't really go into a shop nowadays that doesn't have an electronic till or that won't take hands-free card payment. Most cars have sat-navs and electronic sensors. Our newest trains on the East Coast rely on software to keep them safe at high speed. We use hardware, we need hardware in manufacturing to streamline the production. We need it to have secure digital systems that run the computers, that run the machines. We get our our weather from satellites. Even our fridges have sensors that tell us when we run out of milk. There are sensors in, I know of sensors in the e-health initiative up in the Highlands that they put into houses of older people that can tell if somebody's fallen over or if they're up too late at night and they're worried that something's wrong. So they allow healthcare people to keep tabs on their patients and keep them safe. You can also see in most everything that automation has come on board and is revolutionizing a lot of the way we work. So automation basically replaces difficult or time-consuming jobs everywhere. So just like I said, payment machines that can make cash transfers. There's fish farms that can feed thousands of fish in a second. There's scanners that can detect health difficulties that the naked eye can't see. And these are examples of automation and of using the power of computing, of hardware and software to make things happen. Let's have the next slide. So what can you make with hardware? Well, you've got lots of different things here. In this first image, we've got a picture of a flight deck. So when you look at all those screens there, that is a computer telling the pilot where they are, what their height is, what their distance to ground is, what the weather is like outside, where the other aircraft are. It creates a huge world of information that one person can use to make decisions. In the middle, we have robots. And robots seem maybe like still pretty far-fetched. You're not going to have one in your everyday life. But there are a lot of robotics that happen in factories. We've even seen some of them in schools. I've seen robots take the place of people graduating at college graduations in Japan. And they are there also to help people who are perhaps disabled and need an extra hand doing things. But fantastic bits of hardware, deeply complicated and complex, run again using software. You need both. The last picture there is of a nurse using an ultra sensor, and that's to look inside the body. Now, a lot of that software has to be developed by people that understand healthcare. But you also have people that understand the technical ability of the machine and know what it can do. So it's a combination of working in collaboration with someone that has a specialist skill, and you can use your software development skills and hardware skills to make that happen. So very integrated thinking, creative thinking, and problem solving that comes with making things in hardware. Next slide, David, thank you. Now, this is perhaps already out of date. Where can you work? Well, you don't need to work in an office necessarily anymore. You don't need to go to a specific city or a floor on a building or a room within that building to complete your work. Tech roles, and particularly software roles, hardware roles, can be done from almost anywhere that has a broadband connection and access to a computer. So in that, when you think about working in that environment, it gives you huge flexibility to think about how you want to work, where you want to be, who you want to work with, what environment you like working with. A lot of companies will still return to offices. People like the collaboration, they like to network, they like to have the buzz and energy of an office. But I think more and more, if you have a skill that doesn't need to be done there, you have choice and you can use that skill in a multiplicity of ways. There's one group of people that's really, I'm just going to go back 1 minute, David, the digital nomads. I don't know if you have heard of them, but they're primarily people probably in their late 20s, early 30s that use their digital skills to do all sorts of jobs, from creating software and web development. There are people writing books, blogs, lifestyle magazines, managing properties, managing people, managing money, but they travel around the world. And so they go to live in warm, sunny places in the winter, and then they might go skiing in the Alps, and then they might buzz off to Brazil. They work anywhere, so they just take their work with them. And they're able to do that through these technical skills. So great, next one. So what kind of industries can you work in? Well, major industries that we have here in Scotland and throughout the UK have really embraced technology. And if you look at the high-tech industries, you've got all of those that are creating electronic components, the TVs, PCs, laptops, cameras, phones, to things that I alluded to before, like transport, automotive, aeronautical, shipping, trains, all need that high-tech components to make them run well. Manufacturing, pharmaceuticals are also, we've seen that with COVID, of the immense machinery that creates all the vaccines that we need once it's gone through the testing and trial periods. In my middle slide, I've got people doing animation and creating CGI, which is graphics online. And that is a huge industry within the film and television world. And if you think of all the arts, they're now online: theatre, dance, even art galleries and museums. And we have, in addition to that, all games development. Scotland has a fantastic reputation in games development, with the big players like Rockstar North and even Hunted Cow up in Elgin, and also its filmmaking and television productions. So these are great jobs that also combine creativity or animation or graphic design skills, but need the software, need the technology, need the understanding of hardware to make them come alive. And then lastly, back to retail. So this is a picture of a guy who's making selections in choosing a car as to what kind of interior he wants, what kind of facility he wants. And that is a huge, huge industry in itself. And even when we think about the retail environment, in the last 3 months, jobs in online shops went up by 83% as everybody turned to buy online. But retailers also need to be inventive and creative and sell their products. So being able to make bespoke applications for different industries or different companies or products is a very unique skill and gives you huge property to be creative and to make things happen that otherwise couldn't. Okay, next one, please. Traditional professions have also become much more digital. And in fact, you're really going to benefit if you have those digital skills going into them. So we've got as I said, the medicine and the healthcare, the rapid expansion of machines and software that's used in diagnosis and in monitoring. And you need to be able to, they need developers that can model what can happen in the future. So a lot of innovation and creativity in that environment, as well as strong technical skills, or even a concern to be in that environment and to help others and to look after people that are sick or to make their life better through technology. In the middle, I've got a picture that represents the law. And even in law, there's a new role called a legal technician. Now that's someone with a knowledge of the law and an ability to use digital tools to automate processes. So you might have to change a document or change a word with thousands of pages. In the old days, that had to be typed out, put back into the document, and then distributed to all the lawyers. Now it's all done digitally. Even cases can be analyzed and compared to other cases worldwide. And most recently, software has been used in the place of judges to get a fairer verdict for the person on trial. So the legal profession is becoming digital in all levels. Banking, we know about the ability of machine to talk to machine there, and the whole fintech boom, very, very big companies in Scotland and in the open banking world that are growing a big ecosystem, lots and lots of very interesting jobs in that. And that can involve people in investment, in blockchain, in e-commerce and online transactions, data management, cybersecurity, huge range of roles that are basically centered around software and hardware. Next slide. And then there's new jobs. So here, the guy on the right is esports. And many of you that game will know about esports, but it's a vast industry, booming all the time. In fact, I think it contributes over 111 million to the economy last year. These are people playing games in a competitive environment, and in fact, even going into auditoriums and playing against each other. So you've got Fortnite and League of Legends and the very, very big gamers. It produces a huge amount of revenue for the economy. It brings in advertising, social media. It just spills into all aspects of the economy. You don't just need to be the gamer. There's also jobs in managing the gamers and in developing the software that they play on and the hardware that they use to get the speed and concentration. There's actually even jobs in healthcare in esports, because all those guys are on nutritional supplements to make their brain work faster. Fascinating. The middle role there is an influencer, and the influencers have grown exponentially in terms of their power to make products sell and to influence people to buy specific services. Now, you can be an influencer without having software skills, but if you have the skills to combine videos and visuals, to put things together and to mash up what you want to do to present products or to present yourself, you're vastly more able to create a bigger following and to generate interest in what you're doing. The last picture is of a woman using AI to work with these robots. So artificial intelligence will give her data from all sorts that creates the norm or a generality that she can apply. She can use big data to create scenarios that she can test then on the robots. But it's a combination there again of the hardware, being able to use that to tell the robots what to do based on information that you're drawing from software across the internet. And next slide. So I went in and looked at a report, and really with all jobs needing digital skills, we have to look at what employers want. And these were some of the top things that they came out of what employers want over the next 10 years. So as you go forward in finding a career, and if you do a software or hardware apprenticeship to help build and start that, they are going to look at that and say, well, we really need these key skills, the adaptability to change language or to change how you use it. Literacy and numeracy are always there. You need to be able to communicate well with people, and if you're writing algorithms, you need to be numerate. You shouldn't be scared by numeracy. A lot of people worry that they have to have a very high level of maths to do this, and that's not true. I know people that are data scientists that only got GCSE maths and at C, so didn't even get the maths. And what you have to recognize is that the technology changes so fast that a lot of these things you're going to be able to find a solution for without having to know it yourself. It's about being able to problem solve and find where that solution might be. Employers always want people that can speak well and communicate and get their ideas across, and who bring ideas to the table and can work in a team and be collaborative in that. The data literacy, you probably hear data all the time mentioned, but it's one of the prime influencers of decision making within a company. They need to look at their data and get insights from it and know what those insights are telling them to do. That might be from selling red jumpers on Tuesday to knowing that they should turn the gas supplies off because there's a leak in a pipeline 200 miles away. Employers also want content creation. They want to be able to talk about their products and services. So if you have good skills at writing or putting images together or creating stories on video, those are really, really valuable in tandem with the software. And digital safety, of course, is the cybersecurity and being able to work safely so that you safeguard yourself, you safeguard others around you or using your product. So you've got to think deeper and to be able to know what's going to protect people. And we'll go to the next. So here, this is a slide I put because it's really more of a reflection for you to think about, do these things match what I like, what I enjoy doing? And the circle there, you know, are you curious? Do you like logical reasoning and problem solving? Do you think creatively, sometimes outside the box or a little bit differently from people around you? And do you like a challenge to try and put things together and make them happen? Lots of time people that are solving puzzles or doing jigsaws or putting things, difficult problems, complex problems together, really enjoy software and computing science. And a lot of it's very collaborative and teamwork. You know, sometimes people think, oh, that's a very lonely career to do, that you're just going to be sitting on your own writing algorithms. There are people that need to concentrate and really do that, but for a lot of it, you're going to be talking to the user and to the developers and to the business owner and perhaps to a client to bring it all together and make something, develop something that works. So the things that will really help you, and if you like doing your maths and physics, that's fantastic. If you don't worry, but you will need it probably to get into certain courses. And I know some of the slides later on are going to talk about what you can do to get that if you don't have it. Computing science is a natural fit, but maybe you've done MPAs in game design or you've done some graphic design. Really, really valuable. If you like animation, you like coding, these are all great attributes to have to bring to the table in this type of apprenticeship. And another slide. So why? Well, there's a good reason. You can make good money. So when junior software developers, a very junior level might go in at about 18,000 if you're not skilled yet, but you'll probably end up at 25 pretty soon. I know software developers that are making a lot more than 80,000 in very big roles, but that probably the average is in Scotland is about 46 to 50,000 at a fairly experienced level. There's huge demand for people with software development skills. There were 13,000 jobs advertised this year looking for people with those skills, and technology companies cannot get enough. So it's a very useful thing to go forward and do because you might be able to find different jobs as you go forward in different environments. And as I said, you can work from home for many things. You've got flexible working patterns, very balanced lifestyles. Tech companies in particular are known for being friendly, very friendly groups of people and communities of people that enjoy spending time together. The real thing I would say why is that you can make a difference with software. We are at just the beginning of what we can do. And we need in this industry all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds. It needs women, it needs people that think differently, it needs creatives, it needs sports people that understand life in a different way. And it's an open industry that is welcoming change, welcomes diversity, welcomes inclusion, and is creating our future. So I think it's a great career. I think if you can get into it, you will have so many choices in life and you will be happy that you have the skill to contribute in a wide variety of ways. So that's me. I'm happy to take questions now, or at the end, maybe David's got an agenda here, but thank you very much for letting me speak. Thank you. Oh, last slide. There we go. How to get started. You will be able to talk at schools if you are doing computing science or maybe an MPA in games. That's great. If you haven't done any coding and you're interested, there are Coder Dojo clubs. I know there's one in Stirling, and they are run often by industries throughout the country. Dress Code is a great online coding club for girls, and it's free. All these things are free. Pre-Wired runs out of Codebase. There's Codebase in Stirling and in Edinburgh and in Aberdeen, and it's more for people that have done some coding but want to accelerate that, and usually takes people aged 13 to about 18. And Girl Geeks is a great club that's run through some of the universities and also schools. Again, if you feel shy about doing coding or want to just work with other girls, the Girl Geeks Club is very good and also helps with career choices. So there's lots of things that you can look at to get started. Don't be scared of it. Jump in. People are friendly and they want to help. So good luck.
Thanks, Sarah. That was excellent. Thanks for that. Really great overview of the demand for skills and what routes you can take into that. And just for everybody's dialed in, so we will be sending out these slides after that. There was a lot of information in there, particularly some of those little the big sort of clubs, etc. And so yeah, we'll be sharing the slides after the presentation. So now I'm going to hand over to Pete from Forth Valley College, and Pete's going to take us through the foundation apprenticeships, and we're also going to hear from real live foundation and modern apprentices. Over to you, Pete.
That's excellent. Thanks a lot, Dave. Good evening. My name's Pete Kelly. I'm a lecturer with Forth Valley College. Prior to that, I was an SVQ assessor dealing with IT apprenticeships. Prior to that, I was an IT manager, so I can vouch for what Sarah says in that the job took me everywhere. I got to go to foreign cities, I got to drive servers between countries, I got to install and configure things and answer emergency phone calls at like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. So been there, done that, can vouch for it. It's definitely a good side of it. So from the Forth Valley College and the Foundation Apprentices approach, this is us trying to introduce you into the IT industry. Can we move on to the next slide? Thank you very much. There's our shiny new campus with our shiny computing labs and lots of glass walls within it. Designed on a CAD system by a computer with an architect using load-bearing stress software to evaluate how it was built on that side of things. So if we move into the next slide, how do we get into the foundation apprenticeships? What are they involved in? So the IT hardware apprenticeship is where in the first year we take you through the basics. Now this is obviously you're all using computers on a day-to-day basis at this stage. What we're going to do is actually lay in some structure to it. So we're going to teach you about servers and administering servers, how they're different from desktop computers and Xboxes. We'll teach you about networks, how are they joined together. You'll become the go-to person when the wireless drops out in your house because we'll have taught you all about the technology underlying and underpinning it. Finally, we'll teach you about security, something that we should now know is vital in every aspect of society that we've got, from the personal security on your phone to the clinical medical data security that's held about us on whether we've had a JAG or not, to financial and SQA record security as to whether or not they've been moderated by an algorithm to adjust grades at the end of a year. Different things like that you'll be educated and made aware of in the hardware in the first year. And then the intent is we put you out into the second year. We've taught you how to talk the talk. Now it's time to prove that you can walk the walk. We'll put you in a placement with an employer, which is excellent. It gets you exposed to employers in the first place, out into the working world. We're under slightly adverse conditions now, but we've still managed to make some adjustments to it and maintain some of these placements going forward. And from there, we'll then prove that through work-based tasks, you are actually doing the same job as an IT professional at that level within that workplace style thing. So next slide, please, David. The software apprenticeship within the first year, as Sarah had mentioned, there's programming languages. There are approaches with programming languages, whether we want it to be based on an object like a web page. When we click on a link, something happens. Is there a procedure there? Is it event orientated, such as in Fortnite when I've fired my gun and the bullet hits the guy on the other side? How much health does he lose? Was it a critical statistics or run? These sides of things. So you'll learn a bit about programming, website development, because again, building in HTML is kind of one of the building blocks that teaches us and introduces us to languages. But different colleges teach different languages on that side of things. There's also software development fundamentals, where you're sort of going to learn the underpinning disciplines that we take on this. Lots of fancy acronyms and approaches such as agile methodologies and waterfall methodologies, when it's all just panicking to get it delivered at the last minute anywho's. And again, within the second year, the intent is that we put you out on placements where you can get real world experience. You work with an actual team, and as they've mentioned in software development, you can work from pretty much anywhere. Once you get experienced enough, you can write code from whichever beach you prefer, be it Benbecula or Barbados. Next slide, please. So for actually getting in, what are you requiring? The curiosity, the problem solving, the following up on that side is an absolute. You know, if you want to know how things work, whether that's on hardware side and nuts and bolts and cables, or on the software side of ones and zeros and programming. If you look at a menu of 1 to 4 and think, what happens when I press 5? You've got the curiosity of wanting to bypass. So we're looking for 1 or 2 hires to show that you can work to an agreed standard. we do need at least some mathematics and English skills, and preferably some computing. You know, we're here to build up your knowledge from that side of it, but we need to have something that we can start layering it up on, because it is quite rapid development in the first year. If we're going to prepare you for getting out into the working world, there's a lot to take in that first year, but we make it as fun and enjoyable as possible. If computing science is available for you within your school, we're looking for that as well. If not, we do have a Python programming course, which can again teach you the basic fundamentals of how to work with Python and the interpreters. And Python is the growing language. You know, in my eyes, everyone needs to learn a wee bit of code so that we can eventually start writing stuff that's specific to us. I want my house to greet me when I come in. Well, at the moment, we have to tell Alexa. What we'd like to do is for you to rock your own system later on. So next slide, please. So I've briefly touched on these things. As we said, the hardware and the NPA consists of server administration, network fundamentals, and security fundamentals. And then in the workplace project. And in the second year, we work on both the fundamental understandings in the first year, and in the second year, you're working through VQ units such as investigating and defining the requirements. Because if we're going to write a program, we need to understand who we're asking the questions of and what kind of questions we need to ask that help us build a quality network output. One of the companies that I worked with apprentices for had a policy of only hiring first-year honours software developers. And after 5 or 6 years, that's all they had in the building was first-year honours software developers. Nobody had a sales head on. They would go out, they would sit in front of the client would say, I need a box. It needs to be 6 foot long by 2 feet wide by 3 feet deep. And they would come back and go, there's your box. There's exactly what you asked for. There was no consideration about integration with other services within the existing business or where they could optimize or make things better. They delivered exactly what the client wanted, and that was all. So they saw a drop off in performance for their company because they didn't have anyone with that out of the box thinking style, if we'd like to say that. So next slide, please. I'm pretty much, like I said, I've been there and done that. What I'd like to do now is bring in 3 of our previous FA completions. I've got Ramon, Alex and Kyle who are going to talk a wee bit about how the FAs have impacted them in their daily life and whether it's been a good or bad thing. Here's hearing it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Ramon, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here, Pete.
Thank you very much, sir. I'll hand over to you. Here's Ramon, ladies and gentlemen.
Right, evening all. So I'll just going to talk a bit about my foundation apprenticeship and how I found it and pretty much what's in it from a student point of view. Because it's all nice hearing the lecturers and the people who create to talk about this lovely course they've created, but it's another thing hearing the students from first-hand experience. So starting off from the first year, there is a bit of difference between foundation apprenticeship and your normal high school class. You are expected to have more responsibility because you're in a college environment, and that's a great start because like the teaching methods are different and you're not expected to sometimes in the high school they still treat you as children. In a college environment you're treated a bit more like an adult, which is great for progressing further on and getting into those different environments. So as Pete said, in the first year I done the IT hardware and system support. So the first year was consisted of server administration, security, and networking. So that gives an overall pretty general understanding in getting ready for the work placement, because you've pretty much covered like 90% of IT that you'll pretty much handle once you go into the work placement with those 3 units. Of course, the highlight is going into the work placement in the second year, because it'll be the first time for many people that'll be in a workplace, because some people might have not had jobs before. Some people will be their first time going into an IT workplace. And that's really great because of course, every IT company is different, but there is a level of learning that you don't get when you're just learning in the classroom. And the work placement really shines in that aspect, that you're learning between a mix of different environments. So the all the stuff that you learned in year one in the classroom, you can put to practice in year two in the workplace. So the highlights of the placement are that you're in a different environment, and that you're able to, some people enjoy and find it better to learn in a workplace. Some people find it better in a classroom. So it's a good mix of that if you enjoy being out in the workplace. During the work placement, there is some units such as like the health and safety stuff, and you need to fill out pretty much records of you, like what you've done in the workplace and all. But the workplace is really great because, as Alex, the gentleman who speak after me, knows, he done his work placement and he still works for the company. So it's got some great paths, not just the foundation apprenticeship path where you can move into further education, such as going into an HNSC and HND and then further on to uni. But also, if you want to get straight into the workplace, it gives you a great starting point that you're already at a business where you've done your work experience, and they might be ready to take you on, and that's where you can start your working your way up the ladder of IT, as they say. Me personally, I continued on to do my HND at the Forth Valley College in Alloa, and that's in computing technical support, so keeping around the hardware theme. So I'm currently in my second year of that, and I'll be going to university next year with the links the colleges have to the university. So it does provide a really good progression and pathway onto college and university. So yeah, it's a pretty good course if you've always been interested or you want to try something, and a lot of the stuff you do in the foundation apprenticeship, you don't have a chance to do that in school, like the server administration and cybersecurity, then it's definitely a great way to expand those skills and expand that knowledge and further your career and get started working your way up in IT or software on the different course. So I think that concludes me, and I'll hand it back over to Pete.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Ramon. Excellent. And you've led me beautifully into Alex. Alex is another example from our foundation apprentices who, when he got into the placement, is with a company that has a view to the future. Their whole premise is that they're going to grow apprentices into employees because they are an expanding company. So, Alex, would you like to tell us a little bit about your FA experience and how that's affecting your day-to-day business just now?
Okay, thanks, Pete. So yes, Ramon has brought up some good points that obviously I can expand on. So especially obviously if I begin from the start in terms of going into the first year and the differences that came on from obviously school and the college experience at the same time. So it, going in, it gives you that good contrast between obviously you're in the school environment, you're going in and you're completely subject, and it all feels very routine, similar, and you're just kind of obviously going through, even in different classes, you feel like you're kind of just going through the same thing. Going to college gives you that completely different environment. It really sets, I found that it really gave me that experience in, what it's more like in the actual real world than obviously just school. Like, it's still a school environment, but it's more free, as you might say. You've got that more freedom to go about and such, especially as well with what was provided on this course, because obviously you'll be visiting the college and completing the work there. You will be treated as a college student, so you'll be given access to all the resources that the college actually has, which is perfect. Obviously in contrast to what just the school in general has, it gives you so much more possibilities to develop in your area. Obviously, this is in terms of IT hardware and software, and you have free range to use your account, and you can access that. And it was just great to be able to look into the stuff, and it just gave me so much more hands-on experience than generally what I was given just in a school, a high school experience. So that gave me that really good first step into what it's all like and what I can learn basically. So that obviously what I'd learned as well from the first year, as a whole, gave me that really good solid base to then develop upon. It was very varied. Obviously, Ramon had mentioned the different aspects of what is covered, in terms of network and hardware and such, and it gave me that good base layer that when I then went into the second year, obviously with as Pete and Ramon had mentioned, I am now obviously still currently working with, I was quite able to go in and use what I'd already learned to basically, just help with their general work itself. So, going into the placement, I just starting off, I was given the opportunity to basically use what I've learned and put it into practice. So they'd set me different tasks, and they'd start off slow and it'd gradually build. But from what I'd learned and what they were setting me, it was great that I could just take my knowledge and put it into work, and that would let me expand on that. And then I would do something from something else I'd learned, and I'd expand on that, and I'd basically gradually grow and build upon that base layer to the stage that I'm currently at now, where over time they've seen me develop, in such a process that they were more than happy to take me on, and to this day I'm still with them, and the work I'm able to do is up to a great standard. And that was obviously even then I had very little experience in a work environment, and this was just going and completing a bit of work experience, just using what I'd learned, and literally after the term I was granted a job. It was just like that, and it's been great ever since. Just clicked on, and my knowledge has grown so much. But after that as well, obviously what I've decided to do is further continue as well, in part with my work, develop my knowledge, continuing the course, further courses in college as well as doing part-time work with the business. So that's given me that great balance of being able to still learn, still develop in a college experience, but then also being able to go straight into the job, next thing, use that, and then go back, learn more, use that, expand. And it's this great balance between the two. So definitely from what I've been able to achieve from the course, the knowledge I've learned, the skills I've been able to develop, and what I got out of it at the end, I couldn't recommend it any higher than I've already done. So definitely it was definitely a great opportunity for myself, the FA. So
that's excellent. Awesome. Thank you very much, Alex. Well done. So now we're going to move on to Kyle, who is the next step onwards from the foundation apprentice. Obviously, it's preparing you for moving into the workplace and certifying that area. The next level up is the modern apprentice, where we take you through the full units. Are you with us, Kyle?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me on.
No problem at all. So just nailing into it, you're working full-time in IT just now. Was that job in IT the goal when you decided to go down an FA route? Was that a factor at all in choosing it, or was it just you liked computers?
Well, it was yes and no is kind of the answer to that, because it always started off as I know I liked computers, but it was more of I didn't know what I could do. I didn't know where my skill set lay or anything like that, other than I can put one together. So I guess coming on to the FA for me was the bit where I got to do, the same as the guys mentioned earlier, the networking, the server admin and security. And that's where I got to kind of sit there and go, I'm really liking this server admin stuff here. And it was from there I kind of realised, right, I'm going to start building myself a pathway using this to getting into the server admin aspect.
Magic, thank you very much. So let's focus in on the work sort of side of it. Like we say, you're in the IT job just now. So what are the kind of tasks that you're involved in on your day-to-day? What are the bits that you like about it?
Well, I'm working in a kind of general help desk role at the moment, but it's quite as a help desk with quite a vast amount of responsibilities. So it's kind of anything up until servers, which second line deal with. And I would say, from a non-IT perspective, my favourite part of the job is actually the communication. I like to be able to call someone up and be able to reassure them and know that I can help with their issue. And it's also that feeling that you get at the end of it where you get to go, I've fixed that. I've maybe spent an hour on it because it was a complex issue, but I've sorted that and they've went away happy. And there's been a few times where they've kind of emailed my manager and went, oh yeah, he was really good. He's been really persistent on updating me and stuff. And that's the part that really kind of I tend to focus on, because it's the bit that motivates me to go home and maybe start learning more. So after work, I'll maybe come across something, and after spending an hour on it, I'll go, I want to know how that works. So I'll maybe spin up something at home and start learning. It's really just it's a constant, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a constant push to learn.
The learning never stops, huh? And that satisfaction and the relief in the user's voice when you get it fixed at their side of it can be an immensely rewarding experience. Right, so in looking at what you're doing now with the modern apprenticeship, how is that different? Is there much of a difference between the FA and the modern apprenticeship? What is a modern apprenticeship about as far as you see it?
Well, I think your foundation apprenticeship is more about proving you can do the job and kind of showing that you're as good as, well, you've got the ability to be as good as someone who, is doing the job for real. And from moving on to the modern apprenticeship, I think it's really just kind of solidified to me that I can do the job. And it's kind of, I don't know quite how to explain it. It's just a great feeling.
That's no problem. So in general, when dealing with tickets and things like that, if you were gathering evidence about that, or we were doing fault finding as part of the assessment or the apprenticeship, what's the kind of things that you would have to do? Would you screenshot stuff? Would you record stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. You when you're doing a ticket, you definitely have to put as much information in that ticket as possible. One, because if then it comes up again, then someone can look at your ticket and find the fix easily. Or it's also got that aspect of if someone else had to pick up that issue, then they would know where they were going from that. And when you're filling out the units as well, it means you can call back to those tickets and then kind of screenshot and put it in and say, this is what I did, and this then resulted in the issue being fixed, or something along those lines.
That's perfect. Thank you very much. So, tailing off on this bit of it, I'm realising we're tight for time. Would you say there's anything that from the foundation apprenticeship that's useful in your working day now? Is there
Absolutely.
stuff that you learned? Yeah?
Absolutely. Well, I would say more of the learning about different protocols, such as, your DNS, DHCP, because that's the bit where, when I kind of came into this job, I wasn't sure on whether I'd have the kind of capacity to do it. And then as I started getting through things, I was going, oh yeah, I remember this from college, and I remember that, and I remember this. And without that FA, I wouldn't have really had that. So I think it could have been pretty overwhelming.
Hearing you spitting out acronyms just like the true IT professional you are, spot on. Thank you very much, Kyle. That's excellent. So what I would say from that is I hope that put a wee bit more tangible output to the folk that are listening just now. And I'm going to hand on to Aisha, who's going to go over the next slide. David?
Thank you so much. Can I just say that was so refreshing to hear. I know we're talking here about pathways and digital careers, But I think it's, from the three boys, thank you so much, guys. It's so good to hear about your mindset, but also the skills you've developed. You know, I'm going to talk to you here about the progression, about SCQS levels, but to actually hear the skills that you guys, you know, there's no way qualification is there and it's great, but your skills is really what sets you out and what makes you guys so great. So thank you so much for your time. Yeah, so from the FA, as you've heard, we have modern apprenticeships, and that's SCPQ level 8. So the FAs all start at 6, and there is possibility some modern apprenticeships and councils will start at the same level. As you said from the two, from Ramon and Alex, a lot of them do go into the HNC, HND, because, you know, they've got the relationships with their staff at Forth Valley, and it's the same any other college, you know, they've had that college insight. And from the HNC, there is articulation routes into certain universities as well. And then from here, we do have some students that have went FA to GA with the employer, where even someone like Alex, his employer at Comtech, they may be looking at a GA, and that's where I would liaise with people like Lynn. So that's me, and I will hand you over to Lynn Somerville at Heriot-Watt.
Thanks, Aisha. Hi, everybody. My name is Lynn Somerville, and I'm a Business Relationship Manager at Heriot-Watt University on the Graduate Apprenticeship Programme. So my role is to work with graduate apprentice employers and candidates in terms of bringing them onto the Graduate Apprenticeship Programme at Heriot-Watt. I would just like to mirror what Aisha said, in fact, and say thanks to Ramon, Alex and Kyle. Like your experiences, sharing your experiences with us was fantastic. You all spoke very well, and you're all hitting key points that apprenticeships offer. Real life work experience, which coupled with the academic learning side is key to progressing your career within your desired industry. So if you can move on to the next slide, please, David, thanks. So a graduate apprenticeship is where you will work for an employer while studying towards achieving an honours degree in a discipline relevant to the job that you're doing on behalf of your employer. So you have the FA, ME, GA, and the three of them together make up what is termed as the apprenticeship family. And they've all been designed to work in unison with one another. The main difference being is that it's simply delivered at different academic level. So with the GA, the Graduate Apprenticeship Programme, delivering up to master level, which is SCQF level 11. So you'll note on this slide that there's an 80%, 20% split in terms of the GA candidate attending university and conducting the work-based learning element of their honours degree. So the 20% normally equates to 1 day, so it always equates to 1 day per week at university, actually at Heriot-Watt. In most cases, the 80%, I should say, equates to 4 days if you're employed full-time by your employer. You can be employed for a minimum of 21 hours per week. Most cases, you're employed full-time, however, so it normally equates to the 4 days in the work-based, the workplace, where you'll be conducting the work-based learning element of your degree programme. So the 80% is where you will work for your employer and they will have you doing what they need you to do on a day-to-day basis. And whilst you're doing that, you are meeting the remit of the programme, the respective programme that you're registered with Heriot-Watt on. So if you look at this visual on this slide, you'll note the benefits of undertaking a graduate apprenticeship. You'll leave university with no debt, so there's no student loan or fees to repay in completion of your degree. You're going to be already 4, possibly 5 years ahead of candidates who went through or via the traditional undergraduate route to achieving an honours degree. And as Pete touched on, you're far more likely to have had key experience relatable to other areas of that business that you're working within. So it could be sales and marketing, business development is only one example, and therefore you're more likely to be offered career progression opportunities than again the counterpart student that's went through the full-time undergraduate route and who are fresh out of university with no industry experience. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of key benefits to undertaking a graduate apprenticeship programme, and that's just a few of them. I should say, if you're going to get career progression opportunities, that usually comes with a wage increase as well. So for those candidates that maybe never considered themselves going to university, this also offers that opportunity for those that potentially don't enjoy school as much as their counterparts. So the apprenticeship, as with any apprenticeship, is vocational. So the work-based learning element comes into play, and there's minimum exams in comparison to what you may be facing via an undergraduate programme. So the work-based learning element is weighted, it's credit bearing, and will count towards your honours degree programme and achieving that. David, if we could go on to the next slide, thanks. So I'm going to play a couple of case studies to give you a few examples. Now, this is Sapta, who works for Scottish Water. Sapta undertook she's currently undertaking, she's due to complete the IT in Business Management programme at Heriot-Watt University, and she works for Scottish Water in a IT hardware infrastructure role. If you could play the video, thanks, David.
My name is Supta Das. I'm doing graduate apprentice in IT business management in Scottish Water. To be honest, after I joined this graduate apprentice, my life has changed a lot, both my personal life and my professional life.
The way that I've seen Supta develop over the years is she goes after anything that she wants and she tends to succeed. And it's been really, really nice to see her on that journey.
It's an opportunity to develop my skill set, upgrade it, and I could see that my career can move to the next level. I have a young family at home, and I have a job, and I have a responsibility at work, and at the top of that is that study bit. Yes, it is challenging, but I'm very determined. I want to finish it, and once it's done, I would like to see myself in the higher senior position, and I believe those skills that I'm gaining now will be helping me to prepare myself for that level.
Oh dear, I don't think that worked very well. It didn't work for me, so I'm not sure how it went for everyone else, but it seemed to pause on my computer. So when we send round the recording, we'll send round the PDF link. Well, the slides will be PDF, so you'll be able to click on this and watch it properly. David, if you want to go on to the next video, I just hope that the next one works. So the next one is of Alexandra, who works for Heriot-Watt. She was employed by Heriot-Watt as a graduate apprentice software development candidate, and she basically is employed to immersify herself in gaming technology. So that sounds like a bit of a dream job for those who like to game on a daily basis. So if you can play the video, thanks, David.
Yeah, just on that, I mean, that worked okay at my end, that last one. So I think Sarah's dropped something on the chat that she had it. So hopefully, fingers crossed, everybody, it works.
Okay, thanks, David.
The Graduate Apprenticeship Program is an opportunity which combines both studies and work experience from the same subject. That was the main reason which attracted me the most. In my case, I wanted to change my career into software development and start working directly in this field, but to also have the possibility to learn and gain knowledge from the university course makes me feel optimistic and confident for my future. Having to cope with academic and work demands makes me more resilient, adaptive, and strategic thinking, which will definitely help me in succeeding. So the GA program is a complete package of tools. It gives me the professional behavior, builds my personal projects portfolio, and provides with the needed experience to become the specialist of my field.
Super, that was good. Thanks, David. If you could move on to the next slide. So Sarah and Pete both gave us fantastic examples of some of the types of careers you could hope to go into as a result of undertaking either a software or IT hardware related pathway whilst at school via the FA programme or MA programme when you leave school. So to give you an idea of the types of companies that we work with at Heriot-Watt via the graduate apprenticeship programme, this slide gives you some companies, and they range from small micro companies of 1 or 2 people through to larger SMEs, small to medium enterprises, right through to global corporations, some of which are well-known household brands that I'm sure you're familiar with. So there's many organisations, I should say, that are not listed on this slide, and as apprenticeships form part of the Scottish Government's economic recovery prospectus, more and more employers are joining the apprenticeship programme by the day. If you could move on to the next slide. Thanks. So as you'll know from this slide, each of our graduate apprenticeship programmes have different entry requirements in terms of the SCQF or UCAS points that a candidate needs in order to be granted entrance to year 1. So I've noted here the foundation apprentice in terms of what you could or you will achieve, all being well. So In terms of the points that you will achieve at SEQF level, it would be 59 or 42 UCAS points for either the hardware or system support FA programme or the software development programme. In order to be eligible to join the software development graduate apprenticeship programme, you would need a total of 96 SEQF credits or 112 UCAS points. So an FA will help your eligibility, coupled with a couple of hires at the correct grade. I would advise that you speak to your careers advisor within the school or your teacher in respect of that if you have any questions. Or at the end of this slide deck, I'm going to list some details that you can reach out to either myself or one of my colleagues on the GA team if you've got any other questions in respect of that. As Sarah pointed out, maths is quite essential to undertake either programme. Another subjects such as physics is desirable, and as one example, graphic communication for those who want to pursue a career in animation. Do you want to move on to the next slide, David? Thanks. So you'll see from this slide further information about the qualifications and SEQF levels. There are sample pathways in terms of how you can progress your learning pathway in terms of getting qualifications, etc., and credits, whether that be full-time at school, college, part-time, whilst at work. I would like to reinforce the Developing Young Workforce messaging of the kind of no-run path. So if you don't achieve what you need in terms of the desired grades whilst at school, there are other options for you. So whether that be via the modern apprenticeship programme or you go and study a HNC, a HND, there are always options. So please don't be deterred or disappointed if you don't achieve what you need at high school. Again, that's a question I would suggest you table with your careers advisor, your SDS careers advisor, and or again, you can come to myself or my colleagues on the GA team. Sarah also mentioned organisations that offer coding courses, etc. So that's potentially where you could gain other credits that could be counted towards your eligibility to join the GA programme. So I've hyperlinked on the PDF slides that are sent round. I've hyperlinked both the software and hardware programmes that we offer at Heriot-Watt on the GA programme. If you could move on to the last slide. Thanks, David. So thanks for taking the time to listen. If you've got any questions or queries, as I've said, please don't hesitate to reach out to us via that email address given there. You can also follow our social media channels. The YouTube channel is fantastic. It's got lots of webinars on the programmes that we offer. So you have the software development programme and the IT management for business webinars on there that are followed by a Q&A at the end. I should also say that if you are looking for a graduate apprenticeship role or opportunity, it would be apprenticeship.scot website that you would look at, and or again, you would speak to your SDS careers advisor for further information. All right, thank you for taking the time to listen. Thanks, David, back to you.
Thanks, Lynn, that's brilliant. Listen, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen now because we do have still got a wee bit of time left for some questions. So I shall stop sharing and then some of us can put our cameras on. So yeah, I'm open it up to if MD on the call would like to ask any of our wonderful speakers a question, as tricky as possible, that would be great. And also if you're a bit shy about saying it out loud, you can just please drop it on the chat function and we'll pick it up there. Thank you.
I do see a few Forth Valley area teachers, so I'm expecting some good questions. All quiet.
Happy audience?
Yes, that's it. We must have covered so much that they're overwhelmed by it all, definitely.
Possibly information overload. So we are going to send the slide decks around, aren't we?
Yeah. Everything's there, and anyone within as I say, any of the foundation apprenticeships, please liaise with your school, and they'll get in touch with your learning provider, whether it be local college or the school themselves. So yes.
Can I ask a question, Aisha?
Yes.
You know, finding a role in a tech company or a software development company, there are companies all over Scotland, primarily in the Central Belt. How many are located in the Forth Valley area or in areas that would be commutable for students in that area?
Yeah, so we did have one student last year who actually went out to Edinburgh. It was like more the kind of the end of Falkirk area, so it worked quite well. So that was the Royal Blind Society. I think we do cover the Travel Foundation Apprenticeship. There's no student who they don't pay for any of that stuff. That is included. And it's really, as we were saying, down in the mindset maturity, you know, that is part of them transporting themselves to that placement. But as we've moved into COVID, there has been some remote. So we do have a few employers, mostly in Stirling area. One was through Codebase. But, you know, as we move forward, we're hopeful that there will be some projects, but the kind of visual part of an induction for the placement would then allow for some actual physical placements, because obviously, as the students touched on, that is where the real learning, the real skills are seen. So we don't have, I'm not going to sugarcoat it in any way, Sarah, we have 3 or 4 employers that work really closely with us, and Pete's obviously got his knowledge as an assessor, and we do have a few MEs. So it is an area that's growing, and we're hopeful that an event like this and the pathways are highlighted to employers, that we get them from the whole FA GA journey. So at the moment, not a lot, but they're primarily over the Falkirk Stirling area, with hope that we can grow that.
Great, thank you. Yeah.
I mean, there is a demand. Employers are looking for candidates, and this is why we're running this webinar. So I think that's quite key.
Yeah.
Typically, employers do need the pipeline of candidates coming through the FA, MA and GA programme to meet needs, and this is why SDS run it as a recognised framework as well. So as Sarah pointed out, the wages that can be achieved.
Yeah, quite good. And I would add that I know it's out of the area a little bit. Fife, Lynn and I have had discussion with the Fife FinTech Consortia, and they're desperate to have people join them, and they're looking at the apprenticeship program, both probably through the colleges, but also then into a GA. They'd offer a really nice pathway, and those are major global organizations. So Ingenico, who's now, I think, Worldwise, has great jobs in Fife that can translate to global jobs. Yeah.
We do work with other learning providers, with West Lothian and Edinburgh. You know, we blended the day, we're all doing similar things as colleges, learning providers, and FE SDS package. But yeah, I mean, there is some crossover. But you know, it's not just one student goes to deals with one particular area. We do try our hardest to expose them to as much as possible.
Oh, great.
No questions.
I'm sure somebody has to have one.
I'm sure.
What you saying, David?
I don't know. I'm just going to give my final prompt to ask questions.
Okay.
Close off.
I'll just say one more thing, and you touched on it, Aisha, with the Codebase in Stirling. You know, it's a center for a lot of small startups and entrepreneurial companies. And that's a fantastic place if you can get a role with them, because you will learn double, because you'll have to do everything in the organization. And fantastic for students if they can get into a company like that. They really accelerate their skill set, and very much appreciated as they go into a second job or a third job, that they've had that, you know, at the coalface experience.
I think with Codebase as well, they're promoting the Pre-Wired Club. And that's something that they're hoping. Well, it's going to go online, so it's going to go out to all schools across Scotland. So that's something that we're going to help with. So for those careers advisors and teachers that are on the webinar, keep an eye out for that. And we're obviously working in unison, Aisha, Sarah and I and Helen and Peter, all working together in terms of taking that to the schools and industry.
Okay, well, folks, if there's no questions, I think we can just close it there, I reckon.
Yep.